We breathe in or inhale oxygen. This oxygen diffuses into the tissues and oxidation of glucose takes place, release energy. At the same time, carbon dioxide and water is formed. Carbon dioxide has to get eliminated. This carbon dioxide will pass out through our nostrils. And this process of inhaling oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide is called breathing. Inhalation of oxygen and exhalation of carbon dioxide, that process we call breathing. And this oxygen used for oxidation of glucose and liberation of energy. That is the metabolic process which results in the release of energy from the absorbed food is called respiration. You know, atmospheric air contains 0.03% of carbon dioxide, but the exhaled air contains 5.6% of carbon dioxide. More carbon dioxide will be present in the exhaled air. This we can prove by an activity. Take two test tubes which contain freshly prepared lime water and blow air in the first test tube and second test tube by using a syringe pass air. The first test tube, the lime water turned milky immediately. You know the chemistry behind that. Lime water, which is calcium hydroxide, when carbon dioxide passes through in it, it forms calcium carbonate, that is an insoluble salt that gives a milky white appearance. So here, first test tube, the lime water turned milky. That indicates that more carbon dioxide is present in the exhaled air than the atmospheric air. Microorganisms also release carbon dioxide. Thus we can demonstrate by an activity. Take fruit juice or sugar solution in a conical flask, and this conical flask fitted with a one-holed cork, and through that fit a bent tube. The free end of the bent tube dip in a test tube containing lime water. After some time, the lime water turns milky. The reason is yeast act on sugar and form ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide is passed through the lime water and which turns lime water milky. Since this yeast act on sugar and form ethyl alcohol, it's also called as fermentation process. Next is aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Glucose can be broken down both in presence or absence of oxygen. Higher animals and all use oxygen for the breakdown of glucose. But some microbes and all break down glucose in absence of oxygen. Now see aerobic respiration. Food in the form of glucose is break down into carbon dioxide and water in presence of oxygen. Since it happens in presence of oxygen, it is called aerobic respiration. And those organisms break down glucose in this manner are called aerobic organisms. Some microbes and all break down glucose into alcohol and carbon dioxide in absence of oxygen, and it is called anaerobic respiration, and such organisms called anaerobic organisms, for example yeast, clostridium, bacteria and all. The animals which respire aerobically or anaerobically, the first step will be during respiration is glucose is break down into a 3 carbon molecule called pyruvate. Means a 6 carbon molecule break down into 3 carbon molecule pyruvate, and this happens in the cytoplasm, and the process is called glycolysis. Anaerobic respiration and all will be completing within the cytoplasm itself. But those in aerobic respiration, the pyruvate is taken into mitochondria, which is the site of cellular respiration. There the pyruvate breaks down into carbon dioxide, water and energy. In some cases, the muscle cells are not getting sufficient oxygen. That time, pyruvate is converted into lactic acid. The accumulation of lactic acid in muscles causes muscle cramps, a condition in which muscle cells contract but fail to relax, results in muscular pain. During aerobic or anaerobic respiration, energy releasing will be using to combine adenosine diphosphate with an inorganic phosphate molecules and form ATP. This is the energy currency of the cell, which is utilizing for the cellular activities. And this ATP more will be producing during aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration, it will be very less. What other features you know, children? Aerobic respiration, that you know, it takes place in presence of oxygen, and then products will be carbon dioxide and water, and it takes place both in cytoplasm and mitochondria. Anaerobic respiration means less energy. Other than this, it takes place in absence of oxygen. End product is ethyl alcohol, and it takes place only in cytoplasm. Now listen, ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. When the terminal phosphate molecule is break down in presence of water, energy is releasing, and that energy is equivalent to 30.5 kilojoules per mole. And this energy is utilizing the cellular activities like contraction of muscles for the synthesis of proteins and conduction of nerve impulses. Different organisms use different organs for respiration, depends on the environment they live. Terrestrial organisms use oxygen present in the atmospheric air, and aquatic organisms use oxygen which is dissolved in water. An aquatic organism, fish, taking water, and that water contains oxygen dissolved in it. This oxygen is diffused into the blood, which present in the blood capillaries on their gills. Gills are the respiratory organ. So that oxygen is diffused into the blood and carbon dioxide gives out, and this carbon dioxide along with the water goes out. The amount of oxygen present in atmospheric air is more than that of the oxygen dissolved in water. You know, atmospheric air contains 21% of oxygen. But oxygen dissolved in water is fairly low, less than 1%. So, the rate of breathing in aquatic organisms will be faster than the terrestrial organisms. A fish in an aquarium, you might have seen that, taking water 100 times per minute. But our breathing rate is 40 to 20 times per minute. See children, terrestrial organisms use oxygen in the atmosphere for respiration. This oxygen is absorbed by different organs in different animals. All these organs have a structure that increases the surface area which is in contact with oxygen-rich atmosphere. Since the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide has to take place across the surface, this surface is very fine and delicate. In order to protect the surface, it is usually placed within the body. So, there have to be passages that will take air to this area. In addition, there is a mechanism for moving the air in and out of this area where the oxygen is absorbed. Let us study human respiratory system. The respiratory tract consists of a pair of external nostrils, a pair of nasal cavities, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and these bronchioles branches inside the lungs. The external nostrils leads to nasal cavities. The anterior part of nasal cavity lined by hairs and posterior part the mucous membrane and ciliated epithelium is present. Nasal hair filter out dust particles and fibers. The nasal epithelium moisten the inhaled air and trap dust particles, and the ciliated epithelium push out trapped dust particles and microbes towards the external nostrils. The nasal chambers opens into pharynx through small openings called uvula. And the mouth cavity also leads to a common passage that is named as pharynx. Pharynx is the common passage for digestive and respiratory system. Last, the continuation is the voice box or larynx. Voice box or larynx. Here will be a small opening called glottis, and while swallowing food is not entering to the respiratory tract because of the presence of a flap-like structure called epiglottis. Now see, this is the trachea. Throughout the length of this trachea, incomplete rings of cartilage is present. These keep this path always open. Even in absence of air also, it never collapses. It is because of the incomplete or C-shaped rings of cartilage. This trachea bifurcates into bronchi and enters into each lungs. Within this lungs, this bronchi further divides as bronchioles, and each this bronchioles ends with air sacs or alveoli. See children, our lungs, which is located in the thoracic cavity, these lungs are covered by two layered membranes called pleura with a lubricating fluid. It's called pleural sac. And this pleural sac provide frictionless movement to lungs and keep the lung surface always moist and protect the lungs from mechanical shock. Let us see the mechanism of breathing. See, here you can see a dome-shaped partition called a diaphragm. When the phrenic muscles contract, that flattening the diaphragm, and here the muscles are there called external intercostal muscles. When these muscles contract, the rib cage move outward and upward. The rib cage move outward and upward. And the same time flattening of this diaphragm, that increases the size of thoracic cavity, and this decrease the air pressure in it, so that the air rushes into the lungs. Thus taking in air is called inhalation, that you already know. Then the relaxation of the phrenic muscles make the diaphragm more dome-shaped, and relaxation of external intercostal muscle brings the rib cage downward and inward. Then what is happening? The thoracic cavity decreases in size. Then the lungs are compressed, increasing air pressure and passing or pushing air outside. That is exhalation. Okay. Let us study the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. The oxygen we breathe in passes through this respiratory tract, and when it reaches the alveolar sac, it is surrounded with the blood capillaries which contain blood. More oxygen will be in the inhaled air, so that oxygen will diffuse into the blood. And this oxygen combines with the hemoglobin and form oxyhemoglobin. So majority of oxygen, that means the major part, 97% of oxygen combines with hemoglobin, and in the form of oxyhemoglobin it is transported. Only 3% dissolves in blood plasma and it is transported. And when the oxygen content is low, it is called deoxygenated blood, and this deoxygenated blood travels to lungs for oxygenation. Next, carbon dioxide, which is formed as a result of cellular respiration. 70% of carbon dioxide transported dissolved form in water which is present in the blood. That means in the form of bicarbonates it is transported. Remaining carbon dioxide combines with hemoglobin to produce carbaminohemoglobin, and the remaining part get dissolved in blood plasma. Blood carrying carbon dioxide reaches alveoli where carbon dioxide diffuses into the alveolar air. Dear children, we can continue with respiration in plants. In plants, the exchange of gases takes place through the small pores on the surface of the leaves called stomata. The opening and closing of the stomatal pore is regulated by the guard cells. When the guard cells filled with water, the pore get opened and shrinkage of the guard cells results in closing of the stomatal pore that you already studied, right? See, the upper and lower epidermis, these are the mesophyll. And there intercellular spaces are there. And these intercellular spaces ensure all these cells are in contact with air. Plants taking oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide during respiration. And this exchange of gases takes place by diffusion. Diffusion means movement of molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration to create a balance. See, the carbon dioxide released as a result of respiration is utilized by the plants for photosynthesis during daytime. So, no carbon dioxide is releasing during daytime, only oxygen. Oxygen which is formed as a byproduct of photosynthesis. But at night, there is no photosynthesis. So, at night, what is happening is the carbon dioxide is releasing out.